evening. Good evening. Yeah, so we're about to start. We're about to start now. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. We're glad to have you here. However you found us. I know I spoke to people now. We found us online. And for those of us that were invited, thank you for coming. Yeah. Okay, we have to move on. Sorry, I'm not collected vaccine. That's why. I don't have to give Ira my what I have. What I have, I will not give to you. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, but some people are joining us online too. We're so glad to.
Yeah, welcome everyone joining us online. We're going to start shortly. We're happy to have you. We know you see us. We don't see you, but we see your numbers as they trickle in. And so we'd just like you to drop your name, tell us where you're joining us from. If you're in Lagos, what part of Lagos? If you're outside Lagos, wherever you are in the world, let us know what city you're joining us from.
So we'll start proper in 10 minutes. We're going to have some infographics displayed on the screen, some light music going on. So after which a video will come up for a few minutes. So we'll start in 10 minutes proper. So why the music going on and some of the information is being displayed, we'd like you to just find out what's the name of the person beside you and why is the person come. For those of us gathered here, just get yourself settled and start to feel at home.
Please, for those who are online, we know we have a lot of first timers coming, but we also have a lot of our regular members. Please, regular people, make them feel welcome. Welcome them online as whatever way you can. Welcome them. Those who are joining us newly, please let us know that it's your first time attending anything, a city church, or if it's your second time, third time, whatever the case is, please interact with us as much as possible.
Yeah. So fist bumps. Don't want to greet anybody or you're feeling anybody that you met. Fist bumps. And no shaking or no shaking.
Please
hugging.
keep your face mask on.
Yeah.
Throughout. Only take it off if you need to take water or food or something. We have signs in the hall for those who are here with us. Please read them, follow them, and we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Yeah. So over to you guys, music team and the media team.
If I had to eat any meal every day for the rest of my entire life.
That's simple. Plantain.
Rice? Yeah, definitely rice. Rice, jollof rice, or rice and plantain. But something has to be rice.
Is amala. Amala ewedu gbegiri and stew with beef, soft beef, no fat, no shaki, no round, no assorted, just good beef, quality beef. And then water to taste. And that's the only. No, like four beef.
I'm pescatarian, so that means I'm like vegetarian, but then I eat seafood. To me, the spaghetti, I'm like shrimp or seafood, something like that.
Yam. Yam and stew. I eat that every day. Pepper stew. Have you seen red pepper stew? God, Lord have mercy, it's heaven.
I think to be satisfied is to be fulfilled, to be happy, to be in a content state with every aspect of your life.
Wow. To be satisfied with life, I think for me, it's joy and peace. So if you've got joy and peace, and that is basically satisfaction.
I think it's tied to self-worth. I think to be satisfied is when you look at whatever you have and you're like, do you know what, I'm happy. People respect me. I'm pleased with what I project to the world, and I'm pleased with what I see in myself. It's more of a reflection of you being, I guess, content or okay with your self-worth, whoever is measuring it.
I think satisfaction is more of a journey than a destination, because I don't think on this side of eternity you will ever find full satisfaction, at least not in the things that you think you get satisfaction from.
Well, honestly, in this earth, in this Lagos, no.
So I know that the answer should be no. But when I think about it, I don't think I've ever tried to be like the best that I can be. So I don't know if maybe if I get there, my answer might be different. But at the moment, I don't think it is possible to find full satisfaction in your job or your career or anything.
Because problem no dey finish, that's what they say. And so we're always faced with one challenge or the other that it's there to disturb our peace, and it's ultimately affects our joy.
When that happens, particularly in things that you pride yourself in, it makes you question who you are. It makes you question the satisfaction that you think you have with life. And it might just be a small part of your entire life. But once that thing shifts, it has so much weight that you start to think your entire life is, not worth living. And I also think we're insatiable human beings, so there's always going to be more. We're always going to want more. Even if you're the best, you want to be the best or the best plus. To anchor your full satisfaction in these things, I think you're setting yourself up for a fall or for undue pressure, to be honest.
It depends on where you're looking at it from. I think that because you're doing life and there are other people that you can be concerned about, maybe not a state of total satisfaction, because there will be the many times that things would happen and then you might feel dissatisfied, and it could just be like one little thing, one little aspect of your life, and then in that moment or for that period you feel some sort of dissatisfaction.
I think unsatisfaction comes in like degrees. So with school, somebody that's getting, a few B's may feel unsatisfied with their performance, but it's still different from somebody that is failing all their subjects. So that person that's getting a few B's can say, oh, well, right now I'm unsatisfied with the way I'm doing in school, but it's not the same as the person that is failing everything. So the first person's scenario may not cause them to feel unsatisfied in all other areas of their life, because then even though they're not very happy with how they're doing, they're not doing badly. So I think with like the chain reaction thing, if things are going really, really, badly in one area, you generally feel like everything is going badly. And it's true, everybody has that one thing that they're unsatisfied with, but then I don't think everybody has that one thing that is so bad that they feel like the rest of their life is bad. I think satisfaction is very tricky, because when I think of satisfaction, I honestly do think that, people do not have to be Christians to be satisfied, which may be a controversial opinion for some people, but I do think that some people look at their lives and they are not happy with it because everything is going right, but because they feel fulfilled with everything they are doing.
I think in life you can get fulfillment, you can get gratification from a lot of things, but I think there is an eternal vacuum that it's in our heart that has been placed by our Creator. That is my belief. And so you can get a lot of things. You can be happy. You can be relatively satisfied in that sense by the things you do. You can be a great human being contributing to the world, have a lovely family, have a great career or business or whatever it is that you're doing that makes you happy. But there's always still that thing, for most people that they're looking for, that they're searching for. And if you think about a lot of people that have achieved a lot of success, you find that they have one addiction or the other.
Yeah, but it's very hard for me to believe them, Sha. The last part, they say no, you can't find full satisfaction. But you see the way their faces were looking when they say yam and stew. Yam and stew, amala. What did the other person say? Beef. There was one other person. The person there was
Presbyterian.
what's pescatarian say? I bet he said Presbyterian. I just so Presbyterian now is the mix, they eat mix. But what is pescatarian?
She only eats seafood, no other form of meat.
Oh, seafood. Kai. Oh, wow. No wala. Yeah, thank you. If you're just joining us, whether you're a vegetarian or a pescatarian, we are glad to have you. Thank you very much for joining us again. Welcome. Welcome. This is Lagos Questions Christianity. And some people have joined us online too.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah.
Those of you who have joined us online, we see you from all over. Bega, Shifumi, you're welcome. Bolu from London, and many other people joining us. For those who are, just coming in, please tell us where you're joining us from. And also, please, send the links to your friends, people who you know might be interested. It's not too late. They can come and join us. And let us know how you found us. If you're joining us for the first time, would like to know how you heard about us, a friend, you found us on one of our social media, please let us know.
Yeah. So, and those of us here, like you are here, like you're the ones that you're here with us, so we don't forget you. So thank you also for coming. I know I met a few people. Some people have joined us from Instagram. We're glad to have you. People that found us on Facebook, people that found us on Twitter, we're glad to have you around. So, Lagos questions Christianity, but I think we should reel again the safety protocols and restroom directions. So, like if you go down that hallway, you'll find the restroom just down that part. That if you take the second door, right where the man in white and the lady in black is sitting, you take just that door down, you'll find the restroom.
Yeah, and please, the protocols are the same for those who just came. Please, your face mask on at all times, unless you have to have a drink or something.
Or unless even if you've been vaccinated, you still have to, because you're not sure of other people.
Well, true. There are no hugs, no handshakes.
Yeah, just fist bumps.
Yeah, even the fist bumps with care.
You have to be careful.
Elbow bumps is what we're pushing for now.
Okay.
And as much as possible, maintain distance with each other.
Mention social distance. Yes. But I heard that you have been vaccinated, so I don't have any wala. I mean, I've had COVID before, so I have immunity. We are together. So Lagos questions Christianity. We started I think in 2017, and that first year we addressed two questions. The first question was, why believe Jesus despite the hypocrisy of Christians? I think second question was why belong to church, and why belong to church despite. Oh man, I'm mixing it up. Come back. So why?
Sorry, I
Why
can't
believe?
help you.
Oh my goodness. Why belong to church despite the hypocrisy of Christians? That was one of the questions. That's enough. Let's forget about the second one. In 2019, we did Is Christianity the Only Way to God? Last year was supposed to do if God is good, why does bad things happen to good people? But now, what happened last year? COVID. That's why we say you should wear your mask. So that's why that one did not happen last year. But we're glad that we're here this year, and we know what can Christianity give us a satisfying life. So I think now we're going to listen to a story from someone who's going to tell us more about this year's QC and why we are doing it. Let's put our hands together for Victoria. For Mojirala Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, once again. This thing is high. Pardon me. I'm trying to adjust it. So I have a short story I want to share with you. I woke up every morning to the same rhythm of claps, trying to give life to the same songs, our devotional anthem. Sometimes I felt those songs were tired of being sung because they started sounding like a cat that didn't want to start, giving the promising rumbling and sometimes roaring sound, only to die with the same force it started with. My dad's voice was the loudest. My dad is the only Christian in his family, and he was the only one who pursued his education and was very well-to-do. He supports all his siblings, as generous and as annoying as that sounds. My dad was a Christian, and his life was better. Didn't my dad's siblings see that Christianity will make their lives better? I was 7. On Sunday mornings, we went to our church, where hymns were the order of the day, and the old people, about 80% of the church, stood the risk of chest and heart issues when the youth were allowed to do their thing. But on Saturday nights, around 11 a.m., p.m. rather, we awake from our slumber, kit up in tight scarves, long skirts, and long everything, to a gathering of people with a common goal: to destroy our enemies. If we could forget ourselves, we never forgot the weapon, the Bible. I'm not sure if it worked, but just in case, may their souls rest in peace. How can I murder my enemies on Saturday nights and look like a Christian that can't utter fly on Sundays? Do I even have such power? Am I now a man of war? Is God just waiting to respond to instructions? Are my enemies as powerful as God? Who have I even offended that much? I was 13. I went to a Catholic secondary school. We don't worship Mary, we only honor her, they said. I thought it was quite smart. If you want to get me to do something, go through my mom. But the thing is, you can also go through my dad. The manner of communication might just be different. If God gave his son, and Jesus willingly died so we can have access to God, why prolong the chain? Isn't the creator of the universe due more honor than his creature? I was 15. I got into uni, and I was free to choose how I wanted to worship God. They said God is my father, and I was like, great. I want a relationship kind of Christianity. I started reading my Bible, but the more I read, the more I wasn't sure I was in the right place. I was presented with who a standard Christian should be and handed the standard operating procedures to reach the goal. The special thing about the position, standard, was the attention, honor, and worship they accrued. And just like a barren woman who is advised to carry another woman's child and be happy for her, the rest of us had to be humble and happy in our low estate. There were a lot of miracles. Everything was possible. On a particular Sunday, an old man who was lame was brought to the church. And after being prayed for, he wasn't healed. I saw him muster the strength he had left to stand on his 2 feet again. As I saw myself trying all I could to reach the standard, because if God answered my prayers, then he also noticed me. But we both fell flat on our faces. It worked for some, but it didn't work for us. It pained me. I felt heartbroken. Isn't Christianity for everyone? Doesn't it mean there's something wrong here? Why is it working for some and not others? Maybe we didn't have enough faith, as they would say, but I was too tired to care. I was 22. I graduated, and my friend was no longer identifying herself as a Christian. She couldn't bear the pain of seeing people around her go through so much suffering and still worship a God who claims to be loving and powerful. Where is this powerful and so gracious God? She asked. I have realized the reason why people have questions is not just because they want to. People have questions because of genuine life experiences they are trying to make sense and meaning of. And if Christianity makes the superior claim to be the only right way we can truly make meaning and make sense of this world and our very own lives, then it should be willing to respectfully hear and address genuine questions and objections people have. By it, I mean Christians. I mean us. So once again, I want to welcome you to Lagos Questions Christianity. And I want to welcome you to City Church. Christianity is making another big claim today, that it can give us the satisfying life we are looking for and show us how dissatisfied we are without it. No pressure, Pastor Femi. If you're a non-Christian here, I hope you're able to process your doubts, your questions, and objections through the talk here today. And if you're a Christian here, I hope you're able to process your faith and your belief through the questions we are answering today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madrila. A round of applause again for that story that touched my soul. Yes, thank you very much. And it's interesting what she's raised. And I think in the video earlier, something struck me too. Something Dawn the pescatarian, something she said that really moved me. More than that's kind of that was touching. She said something like she actually thinks that even non-Christians can have satisfaction in this life. And I've been thinking, I wanted like, what do you think about that era?
That's a tough one for me to answer.
Like it touches on what kind of Victoria was
Yeah.
going about, and I was thinking about the
Yeah.
way she was reading.
It's a tough one for me to answer because I've basically been a Christian all my life. You get what I mean? And yeah, so I don't know. As a Christian, I know I haven't experienced full satisfaction. So for non-Christians, I don't know I can answer if they do.
If they do,
Yeah.
okay. I guess that's why we're having today's gathering, and we're about to listen to the speaker for the evening. So, would you want to introduce our speaker?
Of course. Yeah, I'm very honored to introduce our speaker this evening.
Yes.
He's no other person but our lead pastor,
Whoa.
Femi Osuni.
Okay.
So Femi was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. And although he was born in a Christian home, Femi did not follow Christ until his last semester at the University of Lagos. His pursuit of other things did not bring him ultimate renewal that he sought. This personal renewal he experienced from following Christ led him, among other things, to plant City Church, here in Lagos in January of 2017. It's not a surprise that City Church wants to see Lagos being renewed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. Prior to this, Femi had spent over a decade in various forms of preaching and teaching ministry. After his graduation, Femi spent 8 years in the United Kingdom, where he obtained a master's and a PhD in electronics engineering. It's always a tongue twister, that course.
Just
Yeah.
elect.
Elect. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I like that.
Simple and sweet.
Yeah, so apart from the work he does here at City Church, Femi has been privileged to speak at churches and conferences outside Nigeria. I think the most important and interesting thing you need to know about Femi is that he's married. He has 2 boys, Tofumi and Timmy. He's a long-suffering supporter of Arsenal. To all the other Arsenal people out there, at least you can identify with him and some of the stories he likes to tell.
Yeah.
He passionately hates Man U.
Hi.
Unfortunately for the Man U fans that we have out there.
Yeah.
And he likes to think of himself as a star footballer. I
Yeah.
can't.
Can a Christian
can't
who
confirm
supports
that.
Arsenal have a satisfying life?
I don't think so.
Okay. With no other anything, let's just jam our hands
Please
for.
put your hands together
for
for
Femi.
Femi. And for those online, please clap emojis
Yes,
for Femi.
clap
Thank
emoji,
you.
please.
Good evening, everyone. I was wondering whether I was meant to start dancing. I was like, okay, how does this work? All right, welcome to Lagos Questions Christianity at the Same. My name is Femi. To all the Arsenal supporters here watching, don't worry. These dead bones shall rise. I prophesy. It doesn't look like it right now. It hasn't looked like it for 15 years, actually. But don't worry. All right. But I'm happy to have you here. Really happy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you for joining us here in person. As they said, I am a fan of this city of Lagos. I love this city really because, apart from growing up here, you have to love where you grew up, Abby. But, Lagos is, I think it offers, in terms of culture, the best of creativity, entrepreneurship, entertainment that Africa has to offer. I know he was born in Port Harcourt, but he really actually honed his skills in Lagos. Burna Boy won a Grammy, just saying. From Lagos, right? Something like that. The Wizkid, we will not get into a Burna and Wizkid thing, but one actually won for an album, one won for a video. You can. Anyway, Lagos. So Lagos is it's a wonderful place. In fact, that's why it's dubbed the city of excellence, right? The city of excellence. I agree, but I actually think it's better called maybe the center. It's called the center of excellence, but it's better called the center of hustle. The center of hustle. Because everyone here is a hustler. In every city in the world, when somebody says, are you full-time employed? You understand what that means, right? Are you full-time employed? You have a full-time job. That's not really how it is in Lagos. In Lagos, if full-time employment, there's an equation. Full-time employment is equal to a full-time job plus a side hustle. You understand, right? Isn't it? Right? You are not really fully employed if you just have a job. You have to have what? A side hustle. And why? It's because we're all chasing something. What are we chasing? Some people say it's more money, but the moment they get more money in their through a promotion, 3 months after, you find out they'll say something like, I'm still not fulfilled. Some others will tell you that it doesn't really matter that they love their current job. But after 2 years, what good is the job since they don't have a girlfriend? Or what good is the job since they've not yet been married? Though we're happy for a while many times, the truth is that we are never truly satisfied. And this leads us to take many different approaches to this question, can I be satisfied? On the surface, it seems like it's just one of those questions we have to answer. But the longer we find out that we're unfulfilled or unsatisfied, we start to question life itself. We say things like, what is life about if I can't be satisfied? Why am I here if I won't end up being truly happy? Where am I going since this world seems ultimately pointless? I hope you see that the question about satisfaction and whether it is attainable is a question that actually makes us make sense of the world. So I'm sure there are some of us here that are watching that are not Christians, or here that are here with us that aren't Christians. Grateful that you're here. Some of us here may be on our way to checking out of Christianity. Or some of us are struggling Christians. Or some of us are Christians that just need to answer certain questions. Well, as we used to say, in the debate where, I don't know how many of us used to debate, Jets Club. Well, in this talk, I want to persuade you, not dissuade you. Or how do you say? I want to convince you, but not confuse you. But some of you, it depends on the school you went to. I'm playing. All right, but I hope to really persuade us, not dissuade us, that Christianity truly can answer a firm yes to the question, can Christianity give me a satisfying life? I do want to say, in other times, it probably we went a little bit more philosophical, or there may be scientific proofs for all of these things. They exist, but that's not where I'm going today. I'm actually looking at this question that goes through our minds, that really matters to our life. So in this talk, I'm going to go through four things. I want to talk about how we experience the problem, so this satisfaction problem, this lack of attaining satisfaction, how we experience the problem, how we react to the problem, why we have a problem, and the way out of the problem. How we experience the problem, how we react to the problem, why we have the problem, and the way out of the problem. So, now permit me to start by reading an amazing story a discussion between Jesus and a particular woman. Right? It's called the woman at the well because it happened at a well. Now, it may seem like a very ordinary discussion at first, about a mundane thing, getting water. But eventually, you find out that it's a very profound discussion. And the reason, a profound discussion. And the reason I want to read this story is for two reasons. One is, though this thing happened well over 2,000 years ago, right, you can see that the human experience is universal. That is, what they were experiencing then is still what we're experiencing today. But second is this. I am more inclined to believe the cure that a doctor will provide if the doctor can actually diagnose my problem. You know how it is when somebody finds out this is actually what's wrong with you. You're more inclined to listen to what the person says, all right, take this drug, or actually go and talk to this person. And I think what you find in this story is that it comprehensively diagnoses our problem. And hence, maybe, especially if you're not a Christian, you should be listening to the Christian answer. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from a book in the Bible called John, chapter 4, verses 5 to 26. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near a plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and now has come, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship him in spirit and in truth." The woman said, "I know that the Messiah, called Christ, is coming, and when he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Now, this story starts, as it were, with Jesus' own thirst. But he turns the conversation very quickly, if you notice. In verse 5 to 7, he said, "Give me water to drink." But after that, we find out that he turns the conversation on the woman. And in many ways, he turns the conversation to us. We are the ones, he says in verse 10, are the ones that need our thirst to be quenched. We're often trying to find what, let's call it, or it. We're trying to find an it when we say we want to get satisfied. What is it? I don't know how to define it. It is like, it's like the cocoa. The cocoa. We don't quite know what the cocoa is, and yet we know what the cocoa is, right? Like the band said, tell them the cocoa. He never really defines what the cocoa is, but just by saying the cocoa, you know what the cocoa is. Am I speaking to somebody? It is, so some people are talking about food there. You know what that satisfaction you get from food. When do you get it? Now, you don't get it when you eat and you are full, when you've taken a meal and you're full. Do you understand? That time you are just filled. But to get fulfillment is when you take the water after that meal. You understand? Or that cold drink. When you say, that is what? The it. That is what? The fulfillment. In other words, when we talk about the satisfaction, what we are trying to get something that says, I don't really have a need for anything after I have taken that thing. Are we together? The problem, though, is that there are usually two ways our lack of finding that it is expressed. Two ways in which our lack of finding that it is expressed. Let's talk about the two of them. First one, let's call it experience one. Experience one is this. You are totally sure that it exists in external possessions and achievement. That is not inside you. It's either I will find it by achieving this thing, or I will find it by having this thing. So for instance, this woman thought that she was going to find her it through what? Through marriage. But eventually, she realized that it wasn't marriage, so she moved to romance. We'll get to that later. And so many people, for instance, who move to Lagos believe that whilst they've been, in some other town where they grew up or in some village, things were fine, but there is something they are looking for. There is an it they need to find, and so they, I don't know if any of you ever watched Sound of Music. We climbed every mountain, we ford every stream until we find what? Abina? Yes. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow until we find our dream. There are no rainbows in Lagos. I can't remember the last time I saw. But there is an it that we often look for. But when we are trying to find that it, we start coming up with terms like multiple streams of, all right? Because if you have one stream of income, it can dry off. But if you have multiple streams, it may get you the it. Or we talk about, I said, side hustles. You have so many side hustles that we start to wonder just how many sides does the person have. You see, while pursuing your dreams actually does have enormous power in driving you to achieve things that you've never achieved before, what we find out eventually is that the it somehow seems to elude us. We're in Lagos, the city where we love ourselves, but we love one other place. We love our country, but we love one other place almost equally as our country, and it's Canada. Right? We love Canada as much as we love Nigeria. And so, since we love Canada, let me bring something from Canada, right? A Canadian comedian and actor. He used to be very popular in the 90s. I don't know what he's doing now. But his name is Jim Carrey. You know what Jim Carrey said, right? Jim Carrey says this. I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see it's not the answer. Paraphrasing, he would say something like this. I think everybody should come to Canada and get rich and do everything they ever dreamed of in Canada so that they can see that Canada is not the answer. I'm sure some people say, they are not speaking to me. My PR will work. Now listen, even in the best external achievements and possessions, the it we seek in them, the external possessions and the achievements, it will evade us. You know why? Because the it cannot be found in them. The it you are looking for lasts longer and goes deeper. But there's a second experience. If the first one was you're totally sure it exists in external possessions and achievement, there's another one. What's experience two? You've become convinced that there is no it at all. Now at this point, because Hira and Dami tried to introduce me very well, this is the point where I try and look smart. And I try and look smart by quoting an ancient Greek word, philosopher. If anybody ever doubts whether you are smart, just call one, just say Socrates. Or Aristotle ever said. But this one, let's listen to a guy called Epictetus, right? Epictetus says this. And it's not like, it's the book that I read that now showed me Epictetus. So it's not like I'm really smart, but we'll keep that here. All right, Epictetus, all right, the quote I thought would be on the screen. No, all right, so let me just say, this is what he says, an ancient Greek philosopher. He says, do not seek to have events happen as you want them to. Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. See, this is why they are philosophers. I mean, what's he saying? But listen again. No, it's not motivational speakers. They actually don't motivate you. They actually make you feel very bad. That's what happens. Do not seek, he says, to have events happen as you want them to. Don't seek to have the events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. In other words, he's saying, connect to the things in this world as they are, not the way you want them to be. If you connect to the things in this world the way you meet them, then actually pain and pleasure will be one and the same thing, just a sensation. If you try not to expect too many things in this world, what would happen? You cannot be disappointed because you had no expectations to start in the first place. But the problem with this kind of thinking is this. The well actually does quench thirst too. Like, the reason why Jesus asked the woman to give him water is because he was thirsty. The reason why the woman went to go and fetch water in that place is anticipation of thirst, because water actually still helps you with some kind of thirst. In fact, a lot of research shows correlation between some, and this is what one of our speakers, Don, was saying, some external achievements and possessions. It shows correlation between some external achievements and possessions with happiness. For example, do you know how much you need to earn annually? There is a universal amount that you need to earn annually, that if you earn this amount, anything beyond this amount will not make you happier. But actually, most people that earn this amount and above are actually somewhat happy. You know the amount? How much per year? Somebody help me. In dollars, how much? 100,000? Nah, not 100,000. Anybody else? $1 million, I'm sure that's what you say. It's not $1 million. $250,000? Nope. $20,000. So that's what you are striving for. All right. $75,000. And actually, even adjusting for inflation over so many years, that has been the amount. In other words, they say that actually when you are earning below that, you are, there's some legitimate unhappiness that you feel. You get to $75,000, and at least in terms of earnings, in terms of financial accumulation, there is a level of happiness. Other research even shows that people in stable, loving relationships are they're happier than people that are not. So to say, I just want to connect to this world in the way it is, doesn't really help. And in fact, especially here that, occasionally we do like to protest and do things like that. Imagine if we just accept the world as it is. Why would we act for any kind of social change? Why would we be asking for a healthcare system to get better, for SARS to end and all of those things? So that also has a problem. You see, as I said, drinking water does quench. The real problem isn't that. The real problem is, as Jesus says, you keep coming over and over to the well again. It quenched your thirst for a while, but then you came back again and again. And don't think that the problem is the kind of water. You can't, listen, pure water and Evian water, they both quench thirst. Am I lying? The only difference between pure water and Evian is that pure water is how much? 50 naira. It's $50, right? 50 naira. Okay, it's 100. Sorry, 10 naira. You 20. Can you cut the video? Cut the video. Okay, so pure water is 10 naira, and Evian water is like, is it 10? 5. Are you trying to set me up? All right. Evian water is more expensive than pure water. All right. So Jacob's well, she's like Jacob's well. That you are saying that we'll be thirsty, but Jacob's well, are you greater than our ancestor Jacob? The point is said, if you drink from this Jacob's well, you will still come back thirsty over and over again. In other words, Our perpetual thirst is the problem. We are insatiable beings. Now the question becomes, with these two kinds of experiences, the first experience is there is an it that you think in external possessions and achievement. And the second experience is there is no it. How do we react? Well, we react to there is an it, and I'm quoting, I'm thinking from a particular pastor called Tim Keller. To there is an it, we react normally in 4 ways. And to there is no it, we react in 3 ways. So in combined, that is 7. So there is an it, we have the people called the naive, the resentful, the driven, and the despairing. For there is an it. For there is no it, we have the hero, the cynic, and the detached. So let's look at how we normally will react through these people. Let's talk about there is an it. You feel that there is something outside there. Let's start. The naive, aka, some of you will know this reference, the young and the restless. The young and the restless. Usually these are people who are younger in age. Let's say you just finished university, you finished serving, right? I love seeing people like that because there is a great burst of energy. You see an ideal future. You are going to conquer, you probably, okay, I don't know whether people in Nigeria still feel this way, but are we still global champions? Like, I'm going to, I don't know, solve global warming or something. You know, you're going to be richer than Dangote. Young people come out with a lot of energy. Now, with that burst of energy, what isn't seen is that they don't know the emptiness of their lives. They feel that the only reason why they feel somewhat empty now is because they haven't achieved that it. But by going out, by trying to, once I get this job, once I do this thing, and I meet this person, and I discover that, eventually, I will not feel empty. And so you go out, you apply for jobs, you do this thing, you do that. And I often see, before, it used to be about 3 years before, after. But right now, it's almost like 18 months after. They now start to come to terms with their empty feelings. Why? Because they thought they were going to have it when they hammer or they blow. But after 18 months, they don't have it. Why? Because that job hasn't come. Because that spouse hasn't come. Because that business hasn't been set up. Because that milestone has not yet arrived. And so all of a sudden, their naivety starts to go. Have I been in that situation? So now what? But what happens usually is that you become the second person, the resentful. The resentful, aka, had it not been or had I known, right? Had it not been or had I known. Who are these? When the naive don't achieve what they set out to achieve, then you know what they do? You have to look for someone or something else to blame. It reminds me of an old song. I hope I don't mess it up. It's an old song, but I'm not going to sing it. I'm just going to try to rhyme it. I would have asked for a beat, but I think I will mess it up. So I'm not going to. But I want to listen closely to what the person said. It was a comedian. Her name was Anna Russell. And, you know, everybody now, especially now, everybody now that has a problem, right, both from millennials and Gen Z, much more enlightened about mental health and mental trauma. And so there's a lot of psychoanalysis going on. And everybody becomes their own armchair psychologist. So she was reflecting at the time when psychology was bursting forth in her own period, and she was talking about how whenever people had a problem, you know, they went to see their shrink, they went to see their psychiatrist. And so she was almost narrating a story in her song about she going to see her psychiatrist. So here's what she said. All right, so let me try and get myself. Okay. I went to see my psychiatrist to see No. I went to see my psychiatrist to be psychoanalyzed to find out why I killed the cat and blacked my husband's eyes. He laid me down on a dining couch to see what he would find. So this is what he dredged up from my subconscious mind. When I was one, my mommy hid my dolly in a truck. And so it follows naturally that I'm always drunk. When I was 2, I saw my father kiss the maid one day, and that is why I suffer now from kleptomania. At 3, I had a feeling of ambivalence toward my brothers, and so it follows naturally I poison all my lovers. But I am happy now. I found the lesson this has taught, that everything I do is wrong is someone else's fault. Have you never thought? Have you ever said, or have you never heard, if my parents had sent me to better school, if my parents did not spoil me, if my parents did not give birth to me in this country, I would have been chairman by now. Or if not for my abusive spouse or my abusive boss, I would have been somebody in that office today. Some people blame people. Some people just blame circumstances or systems. If not for the sexism or the nepotism or the racism or the other isms, I will have been where he or she is today. I found the lesson that this has taught, that everything I do that's wrong is what? Someone else's fault. You see, after the naive come to find out that the it wasn't there, what happens is that you start becoming resentful and wondering, why is it that this thing didn't happen to me? And you see, sometimes actually going through that process of trying to figure things out, it may work out in a constructive way. Maybe you get into, that's why a lot of social activists are very angry people. Have you ever met a social activist that is just even killed? No, they're always very angry. You may be able to constructively use it in the right way. But ultimately, the venting and the complaining doesn't ultimately lead to somewhere constructive. But that makes me think about the third one. Because here, the first 2, you didn't achieve the thing. But in the third one, the driven, what happens? You actually do achieve. Notice that the woman that Jesus encountered believed that it was in husbands. Guess what the woman achieved? She got married. She actually did get married. Like many of us, we are maniacally driven to accomplish and get what we set out to get. And then we eventually get it. And when we get that thing that we think it is in, and we find it is not there, what is it that we do next? You know what we do next? We think that it was this kind of thing that was the problem. So we look for another one. The woman got married once and found out it wasn't to Shegun. So what did she say? Marriage is not the problem, Shegun is the problem. So she got married to Kunle. And then, all right, let's keep taking. And then when Kunle did not work, she said the problem is in Kunle, so she got married to Temidayo. And then she realized that the problem wasn't in marriage. The problem wasn't just with Kunle, Temidayo, and Shegun. The problem is that they were all Yoruba demons. So she now moved to Ben, a PH guy. And then that didn't work. She moved to Ekpeong. And then she found out that South people, no, it's not that. But at some point, what happened? She gave up because she became tired of going through the same thing over and over again. There's a guy called Tom Brady. How many of us have heard of Tom Brady? Tom Brady is, American now. They often will say something that doesn't make sense. Tom Brady is an American footballer. Now, by saying he's an American footballer, he doesn't kick anything with his legs. He actually throws something with his hand. And you're asking me why. That is why I don't live in America, right? Things are confused there. But Tom Brady plays this sport, and this sport is the number one sport in America, American football, right? And the biggest event in the American football calendar is called the Super Bowl. In fact, it is the biggest TV event in America every year, right? So I know a couple of years ago, maybe like 7, 8 years ago, to get a 30-second spot, advertising spot on the Super Bowl, 30 seconds, you know how much it costs? $4 million. Exactly, 30 seconds. If they don't do that advert well, So Tom Brady, to win the Super Bowl is one of the most difficult things to do. One of the most difficult things to do. But Tom Brady was an extremely driven person. He played the most important position in the football team. It's called the quarterback. And of 2005, only about 2 people had won the Super Bowl 3 times. Tom Brady now won it in 2005 3 times. After he won it the 3rd time, you know what he said? Listen to him in this video.
But with all that money, fame, and career accomplishments, we were surprised to hear this from him.
Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey, man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is... Me, I think, God, it's got to be more than this.
What's the answer?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
After 3, there's got to be more than this. This year, he won his 7th Super Bowl. He said he's coming back next year again. She changed one, she changed the other, she changed another, she changed another. When did you get tired, or when did it fall off you that, okay, that sense of feeling that, when I make my first 1 million naira, how long did that feeling last? 1 week? Oh, I know the problem. It was 1 million, but back in the day, the 10 million of today is what that 1 million is. Now you've made it 10 million. When did that wear off? Well, maybe you are now thinking the problem is that it's 10 million. If I reach 100 million, I am sure. For some of us, we even aim higher. When did you get tired of that iPhone 12? That's why a lot of men break up after 3 weeks after Valentine. It's the truth. Because you get your babe an iPhone 12, and you believe that, is iPhone 12 the latest one? 13. You get your babe an iPhone 13. And honestly, the truth is I no longer date. Glory to God. I'm married, that's why I'm saying that. But if I got my babe the latest iPhone 13, I expect that at least you will not offend me for 13 years. iPhone 13. And then after like 1 week, you're like, I don't like the way you talk to me. You can't do that. You understand? We keep thinking we'll get satisfied when we find it, but then we look for something else again. Once I reach 1,000 followers, it will be happy. No, maybe 5,000. No, maybe 20,000. If they all like this thing, 200 likes. No, I need 200 likes in 1 minute. No, in 30 seconds. You keep running on this thing like a treadmill until it gets so exhausting going down that path because you can't find. And that leads us to the final one in this experience, the despairing. This is the worst point. This is when you are 43 years old and you wake up one morning and you realize you're not satisfied with your career. You're not satisfied with your love life. You're not satisfied with your parenting or your financial status. You are not satisfied because you realize that these things have happened down to a series of bad decisions you have taken consistently and you have been one of. All of a sudden, you now realize that it's not someone else's fault, but it is now yours. And so you end up not blaming anybody else, but you blame yourself. You don't see that you have failed, but now you see that you are a failure. And so you end up hating yourself. And so you see, all these 4 reactions don't help us. But maybe if we consider there was no it, maybe that will help. There are 3 kinds of people there. And the first one is the hero. Who is the hero? Now remember, the it believes, this second experience believes there is no it. Now, there is no it in external possessions and achievements. Now, who is the hero? The hero, some of us have become, you become enlightened. You've read some nice books. You've read some Greek philosophers. And you find that you are more enlightened than the people around you. You are more enlightened than your previous self. You are more enlightened than the previous societies that came before you. Maybe you eventually hammered, or maybe you are born into wealth. And so you realize that, see, people that are chasing all these things and think that value is in them, that's not where real value is. Value is not found, or true satisfaction isn't found in you getting better. True satisfaction is found in making others get better. So you pour yourself into philanthropy and activism. You feel valued by making others feel valued. What could be wrong with this? Now, of course, we can't discourage that. But ultimately, let's be honest, this is self-serving. It is self-serving. When you say you care for people, your care for people is really hinged upon your care for yourself. Your supposed generosity comes from a place of moral superiority. You feel like you know something that other people don't know. And that thing that you know what that helps you do? It starts making you look for vulnerable people to help them. You start feeling like some kind of messiah. And so when you give people help, you start using that help to control them. You use other people's vulnerability to feel good about yourself. And when you give them that help and they don't react in a way that makes you feel good about yourself, all of a sudden you start to resent the people that you are trying to help. I thought you were a true hero. Some people actually measure. You'll be like, when I gave that person 50K, the way she knelt down, she just did like this. They said, that is 5,000 naira kneeling now. It's 50K now. At least, calm down. I gave the guy 100,000. One phone call. Just one phone call. And he spent 1 minute. Is it not? How much is the call? You expect, don't you have a wife? How come she didn't call me too? When you try to use other people to make yourself feel valued, you are using other people. But then you have another one, the cynic. Who are the cynic? These are the ones that have grown up. They put away childish ways. The childish ways of thinking success comes in sex, money, and power. They now know what most people don't know. And you know what they found out? That contentment, that no one is ever content or satisfied. The key to life is not about chasing dreams or anything. The key to life is managing expectations. What is in front of you? Just try to enjoy it for what it is. Life is about management. It's not about satisfaction. If you've ever met people like this, you'll find very quickly they are no fun to be around. Have you ever met somebody who, you got this job? Like, whoa, I just got the job with this company. I heard that those people, the way they work people tirelessly, I just started this business. I saw the forecast for that business. It's not, things are going down. No? So just, have you ever met somebody like that? Maybe, are you somebody like that? Not fun to be around. You can never really enjoy anything. They spoil other people's good news by giving them a dose of reality check. Apart from the fact that you are not fun to be around with, the problem, problem with these people is this. One of the differences between animals and humans is that animals don't seek joy, meaning, and fulfillment. Humans do. So for you to get to a place where you say, I am not going to try to seek any joy, fulfillment, or any kind of meaning, or to lose enchantment with this world, the ability to smile, you know what you must do? You must actually harden your heart. You say, oh, I'm doing it to protect my heart from being broken. The only way you can protect your heart from being broken is to make that heart very hard. And so what you end up doing is dehumanizing yourself by becoming a cynic. The final one is very related to that, the detached. There was a lady I was counseling once. She'd had a tough life with relationships and her family. She had a divorced spouse. And she asked me years ago, she says, why does one have to pursue happiness? Can't we just accept it's an illusion and just get on with life? I remember looking at her, I tried to explain. I knew she had started listening to philosophers like Epictetus. And we tried to have a conversation, and I said, you can't live life this way. And I saw this person generally just move away from people, detached, could never really attach herself to anyone. Our life would be something like this. Why love when we'll all die? Stop having huge dreams. Stop expecting too much from people. Stop expecting sunshine. Stop receiving flowers. Stop dancing to love songs. Stop! Why invest when a recession is already around the corner? Just detach. So she tried to live her life emotionless until one day she called me and said, I don't want to be alone anymore. Trying to live that life as an alternative is not sustainable because you are trying to go away from your humanity. When she said, I don't want to live alone anymore, she was becoming just that much human. You see, though detachment may seem like it is wise, it is ultimately heart-hardening and dehumanizing. It may protect you from hurt, but it protects you from hurt at the expense of loving. And nothing is more fundamental to what it means to be a human than to love. So these are the ways that we react. And I want us to watch this video and just see again from these are people who told us about this problem, right? How is it that they themselves have been reacting or when they think about this? And then we'll close this with the last two things.
I think before I truly understood what it meant to be satisfied in Christ or to understand that I'm God's own, I was under a lot of pressure. I mean, I wasn't under, that sounds like external factors. I put myself under a lot of pressure. With school and academics, I was a smart kid and it came naturally to me. So it wasn't that I studied particularly hard and then I got it. It's just that I got it and it was fine. And that's who I was. I was the brainy, chatty child, the one that was going to be ambitious and be a millionaire by 21. And then A-levels happened and university happened. And then things weren't coming as easy to me anymore. I didn't see the target of, being a millionaire by 21 anymore. Things were, and it really made me think. It almost made me think, was life worth living? Like, what was the point of it? If this is who I am and I can't even achieve that, then what is the point?
At some point, I thought my identity was all about me being smart and being the best. And over time, I found that there are situations where I'm simply not the best. Sometimes I'm great, I'm excelling. But sometimes, things don't work out.
For me, my satisfaction comes from my achievements and the things I do. So I feel satisfied based on maybe how well I'm doing in school or how well I'm feeling. Basically, school is like the most thing I do right now. So my performance in school is like my main measure of satisfaction. And I know it shouldn't be like that, but I tend to measure my satisfaction with my achievements. It's not constant. So like today, I may be doing very well in school and I'll feel satisfied. So what happens if I start to, struggle with a particular subject? Then it means that I'm going to start seeing everything else as bad, which is problematic because I shouldn't put like all my eggs in one basket. I shouldn't look at school only as the source of my satisfaction.
So if we do have a problem and we often don't react well to that problem of not finding satisfaction, if we are going to find a cure to that problem, we need to be able to find out where that problem is. What is truly that problem? Jesus says something that I don't want you to miss out. When he was speaking to the woman who wanted to deflect the personal conversation, because the conversation got personal when she said, go and call your husband. When he was speaking to the woman, she now started going theological on him, like, where is the real temple and all of that. And Jesus says something. He says, you guys, you worship what you do not know. You worship what you do not know. The problem that we have with satisfaction is actually a worship problem. What do I mean? Who is a good person? When we're trying to find out who is a good person, what's the most realistic answer? Quite often we look at what people say, we look at what people do, and we say, this is how I know this person is a good person. A Christian hero of mine died last year. And when I say Christian hero, like someone who influenced me so greatly, he died last year. Well celebrated all around the world. Millions of people watched his online funeral. It was later found, towards the end of last year and this year, that he was a serial sex predator. Was he a good man? If you had asked most people, because of what he said and because of what he did, we would have said he was a good man. But you see, at the end of the day, we are not asking just what people believe, what people say, or what people think to find out whether they are good people or not. What we really should be looking at, as Jesus is saying, is what people worship or what people love. Because at the center of who you are is not what you say. In fact, quite often we like to say, we like to say more than who we are. When somebody says, I'm the kind of person that, things don't easily move me. I don't just lose my temper. That person loses their temper a lot. Somebody starts diet this week. They say, I don't like taking food that has a lot of calories. Often what people say, just started this week. Fit for, and you always know when it's not true because that's when you see them on Instagram story. Right? And you often say, after 5 days, what eventually happened? You are what you really love. Because at the heart of it, many times we do what is wrong. How many of us have ever done what is wrong before? Right? If you didn't raise your hand, you just did what was wrong, right? Now, one more question. When you did that thing that was wrong, did you know before you did it that it was wrong? Hands up if you knew. If you've ever done something that was wrong, and you knew it was wrong before you did it, hands up. In other words, we're not just what we believe or what we think. Because if we were what we believe and what we thought, we will not do what we know is wrong. Why did you do it? It's because in that moment and in that time, what you thought that thing was going to give to you was more important to you than any kind of consequence. Do you understand me? That thing, you love that thing more than whatever God or whatever somebody that you respect would have said about you in that moment. In other words, we are driven by what we love. Whatever our hearts find, whatever our hearts worship or our hearts love, our mind will find rationable, our emotions will find desirable, and our will find doable. And so Jesus is saying, if you want to find out the problem is a worship problem. It's at where we can locate where the problem is working is at the worship. Now, what is it about our worship that is the problem? What is it about what we love that is a problem? It's something we can just call disordered love. Disordered love. For those of us who worked, maybe you've been on any kind of team, whether it is a work team or school team or something. Have you ever been part of a team where there was a leader of the team, But having spent some time in that team, you realize that that leader should not be the leader of the team. That there's somebody else on that team that really should be leading the team. Hands up if you know what I'm talking about. You're like, this person just talks too much. This person, by the time this person says something, then this other one now solves the problem. This one says something else. It solves the problem, but that other one is still doing a buju. Like, this person should not be. When you look at that team, what would you say? You say things are what? Disordered. This is what disordered love is all about. If you love your work more than you love your family, what will happen? You will neglect your spouse and your kids. Disordered love. If you love your reputation more than you love your employees, what will happen? You will care little about their health and more about their productivity. Disordered love. If you love your comfort over compassion, you will pay lip service to those who are suffering without sacrificing time, money, or abilities to help them. Do you understand? Many people love to talk about how they love people, and yet they don't actually sacrifice any of their resources. They don't sacrifice their time to help people, but they can talk about that. Disordered love. So, question. If our problem is the way we put the hierarchy of our loves, they are not rightly ordered, love of what should be at the top in your life? Family, work, romance, nation, self-love, humor, education. Which one should be at the top? Anyone want to choose? Some people are telling us that love of nation should come above anything else. We should be nation builders and not care about the sacrifice that we'll pay. I've met many nation builders. Their families don't like them. For some people, love of humor is the most important thing, and they talk about free speech. They are very funny, but they hurt a lot of people with their words. Let me tell you very quickly. If you put any of the things I just said above, if you choose any of those things and you put them number one way or the other, something is going to get neglected or something is going to get abused. Why? Because the real disorder we have is not a disorder in the love of the created things. The real disorder we have is a disorder between love of the Creator and love of any created thing. Jesus says that true worshipers is what God is looking for. In other words, if you love anything in this world more than you love the Creator of this world and your Creator, you are going to have a problem with satisfaction. Not that we should not love anything, is that we should not love them more in relation to God who created them. Hear what I'm saying? It does exist, but we are longing for something that lasts longer and goes deeper than any created thing can give you. Chase all the money you want, it will not satisfy you. Chase the love that you want in a spouse, it will not satisfy you. Chase children, they will not satisfy you. Why? Because the it that you are looking for in them goes deeper and has to last longer than what any of them can ever provide. You are created for something deeper. That's why I love this quote by a guy called C.S. Lewis about we human beings. This is what he says. A baby feels hunger. Well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. Well, there is such a thing as water. Men feel sexual desire. Well, there is such a thing as sex. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Do you see what he's saying? He's saying the two experiences are both right and wrong at the same time. The first experience says there is an it externally. It is correct. But that it externally cannot be in this world. The other one says it does not exist in this world. They are correct. But it doesn't mean that it does not exist. It is this that you are made for another world. You can't truly look for satisfaction. But the satisfaction that you are looking for exists not in created things, but exists in your Creator. When you are trying to find satisfaction in things that ultimately can be lost. Because any spouse that you have, no matter how great they are, no matter how great that relationship is, one of you is going to die first. Whatever business that you have, whatever, accomplishment you make, eventually you're going to have to hand it over to somebody else who eventually may actually ruin it. You need something that can last deeper. Why try to seek satisfaction with all the created things that you ultimately can lose when you can have satisfaction with God that you can never lose? We are created for something deeper. But finally, I do want to talk and say, how do you then get to this God? This is the way out of the problem. Because if Jesus just left that woman and said something like this, love God more. Just love God more. This would be abstract and unhelpful. Because Hira said here that even she is still struggling sometimes with satisfaction. The truth is that even people who call themselves believers in God themselves are still trying to grow in what it means to love God. But it's even more complicated because Jesus said he's looking for true worshipers. That means that there is a wrong way to worship God. Some people say stuff like, all of us are called to worship God in the way we would like to worship God. Actually, no. Jesus says that there's only really one way to worship him. And you can do it in a wrong way. So how do we do it? Well, Jesus is the key. Notice the woman said, I think you are a prophet. She is not wrong by that, but she's wrong in that if she only thought that he was a prophet, that was a problem. And for many of us, the biggest problem we have is a misconception about Jesus. Who was he? Just a prophet? Or maybe some kind of miracle worker, as some religions would say. Maybe some kind of moral teacher, as some of us like he's some kind of inspirational figure. If you continue to have this misconception about him, you will be dissatisfied. Eventually, Jesus tells the woman, the Messiah that you're looking for, and by Messiah, what they understood, both the Jews and Samaritans, is that the one who will come, the one who is a human being, but is God come as a human being, that will be the Savior of the world, that would give us the thing that we are looking for and longing for, even when we don't know. That is who Jesus is. In verse 14, he says that he can give you the water that you are looking for, that you will never thirst again. How does he do it? Well, he does it two ways. Ultimately, what this thing shows is that we are thirsty. We are thirsty. But in our thirst and our reaction to that thirst, ultimately, what do we do? We end up sometimes using people. We end up doing bad things in this world. And doing that in the world that God created offends God. Or we end up worshiping other things, which is an offense to God. And so what will a just God's reaction be to that? A just God's reaction to that is to give us over to an unquenchable thirst forever and ever. And here is the wonderful message that Christianity offers you. That Jesus actually died, and when he died for you, you know what he said? One of his last words, he says, I thirst. In other words, that the unquenchable thirst that you deserve, Jesus took in your place so that you will never have to thirst again if you believe in him. His thirst for you is what you need. And if you accept that Jesus became eternally thirsty for you on a cross, then he can give you his well. Remember what C.S. Lewis said? C.S. Lewis said that maybe, in fact, here's the point, that you are made for another world. Jesus says that if you drink his water, it will spring up to eternal life. You know what eternal life means? First of all, when C.S. Lewis says we are made for another world, Jesus is saying we look for all the things in this world to satisfy us. Well, this world has its limitations. I am going to recreate the world. Many people think that the Christian hope is us escaping this world. Actually, it's not us escaping this world. It's that God is going to recreate this world in a perfect way. But for us to enjoy the world in a perfect way, we ourselves in our bodies have limitations. We don't live eternally. And so when Jesus says, I'll give you eternal life, he's saying, for you to be fitted to enjoy that new world that I'm going to create, I will give you a new body. And you say, this sounds like wishful thinking, except that it has already happened before. Jesus died and Jesus rose again. He has already started that life that he says he will give to you. This is not fanciful thinking. And he says, if you have that perfect body and to fit into that perfect world, you are set up to have that perfect satisfaction. And so, oh, all I need is a perfect body and perfect world. Is that it? No, that sets you up for the perfect satisfaction. Where do we find it? Remember, it's about disordered loves. If your love for a perfect body and love for a perfect world is what you're looking for, you will still be thirsty. We are set up in that way so that we can have a perfect relationship with God. When we are perfectly restored, our relationship with God, our love will be perfectly ordered. And that is when he says, to the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of water of life. So I don't know whether you are about checking out of Christianity. Maybe because you feel that I have prayed, and Victoria gave us that wonderful story about all the things that you thought he was going to give you, but maybe because you were worshiping him in the wrong way. Can I ask you? Or maybe you've never actually given Jesus a chance. Can I ask you to do so? Because he gives a water that would always satisfy. And somebody is saying, you know what, this is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Can I tell you what's less believable? Is to say, I can find it in this world. Or there is not it in this world. But I'll say this is the most important answer you can find, that there is an it. And because you are valuable and broken, God has sent Jesus to come and give you a chance for that it. He says, let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life. If you find your identity truly in Jesus, right now, you will not experience that total satisfaction. But you can live life with this knowledge that I won't find total satisfaction in this life, but I have already been secured the total satisfaction in the life to come. So, I can experience good satisfaction in many different things in this life, in my job, in my relationship, in all of these things. But even if I don't have any of those things, I don't have to be given to despair. If I have some of those things, I don't have to think I have fully arrived. Because God has prepared something much more for me than I can ever imagine. Thank you.
The way Christianity influences satisfaction for me is there are things that I would usually be stressed about. Like there are things that would come up and I would usually be stressed about, and that could, in that moment, like take the satisfaction I feel away. Or in those moments when there is a particular thing that I've wanted and then I do not get it when I want to get it. Those moments I would normally be down, a bit dissatisfied. But then Christianity kind of like puts that into a different perspective for me, because rather than being down and dissatisfied in those moments, I always just consider the fact that like those moments do not overall define things for me.
I think the ideal is generally just to know that because I have Jesus, I am satisfied. There's more to like the Christian life than what we have here on earth. Because at the end of the day, when we die, we won't take all the achievements we have with us. So our focus should not be on the things that we are doing here and the things we are doing now, but of what is to come when we are finally in heaven with Christ.
Well, me being a Christian, what I do have added to peace and joy is hope. And so I know that someday or one day I'll be with Jesus, and being with Jesus, I'll be free from every worry, every pain, everything will be gone. And so as a Christian, I've got hope, and that hope gives me the motivation to drive on, and fight to get peace and joy in my life. It's like knowing that someday everything will be fine. And so hope is actually very important in life.
And you know that with God, He would always give you what you need, not necessarily what you want. I mean, I want a lot of things, but I know that from experience, working this journey with God, that He always unfailingly gives me what I need. There's a peace that comes with just knowing that God is with you through the seasons of life. So, without God, you're just like trying to, just figure it out on your own, which can be very, very overwhelming. But knowing that, God has got your back, you wake up every day, you know that yesterday was, terrible, but, God is with you, you would make it through today.
There's a lovely illustration Pastor Femi used one day. He spoke about a team in the Premier League that had won the cup already. With the points that they had, there was no way someone could meet up with them. But they still had a few games to play. And so they did not just stop playing those games. They went out, they gave their best. They won some, I don't know if they lost some, but they still went out to play. And so a friend of mine says, already there but not yet, something like that in that line. And what that means is that I know someday I'm going to be in heaven with Jesus Christ. I know the battle has been won, but then there are still a few games to play. So do I just give up on those few games? No, I still have to go out, play those games to the best of my ability, win the ones I can, draw the ones I can't win, and then maybe some I'll lose, who knows. But then I just cannot give up just because I've won the battle.
I think for Christians, the generic purpose for us is to be Christ-like in whatever we do. And I think that should give you satisfaction in the sense that whatever you do, if you're good at it, if you fail at it, it doesn't matter, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you are defined by Christ, you are Christ, and you are joint heirs with Christ. And when the end of days come and judgment day comes, you will be welcomed home to God. I don't think that means that we should be complacent in life. I don't think it means that this life here is meaningless. I think it frees us up to, do the things that we want to do, to be the best that we can be because we're working on to God. And even when we fail, there's nothing to lose, because even though you fail, God doesn't look at you and see a failure. He sees His child. When you pass, when you succeed, when you're the best that you can be, He doesn't look at you any different from someone who's failed. You're still His child. And I think that should free us up to, be who we want to be, because we literally have nothing to lose. Well, apart from like tiny shame, but what's shame in real life? Who's shame him?
Yes, who shame help. You really get to, let's put our hands together for Pastor Femi for that talk. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was really intriguing. Yeah, the disordered loves analogy, and then just the one that Tedo just added about the Premier League team, of course, which is not us now. We know they did not win the league ahead. Yeah, so a lot of there's just a lot of thoughts, a lot of things to think about. And I know people are already having questions. People are already having questions. We got a question online, right?
Yeah. If there's world peace, do we need God? Those are the kind of questions that we're already getting.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Pastor Femi is ready for all your questions.
Yeah.
So please drop them. For those of us in-house, we have the option of asking live. If you're online, you can put your questions in the chat box.
Yeah, and I think the WhatsApp number and where you will be displayed on the screen.
And then, I would call out the WhatsApp number. I think it will be on the screen, but just in case anybody either here or online, the number to send your question is 090 76700860.
Did you practice? You're just rhyming with the way that
I'm reading it.
It was rhyming the way it was showing.
Oh, yeah. So, please, whichever feels most comfortable for you, do that. Would take a 5 minute break. Yeah. During the break, there's food, refreshment outside. So
Yam and
that's
stew, amala,
seafood.
yeah. Pescatarian, like all kinds, everything.
For those online,
Yeah.
you see what you're missing, but
Yes.
take a break,
Yeah.
stretch. We
receive
hope you have
drink.
food at home.
Uh-huh.
Make a cup of tea or anything.
Yeah, or get a chilled
But
cup of water.
Don't forget your questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. So we'll go on that break and then we'll be back for question and answer. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. So you just go out and grab any delicacy you want and your drink. Yeah, you find out. Thank you. we're about, so can we please settle down? Can we shut the door? Yes. Okay. Can we all come in? If you grab food, just come inside. Yes. Can we ask those outside to come in? If you grab food, yeah, come inside. Okay. So we're still continuing with music and our refreshments. Yeah, I brought it to prepare you guys online. See now, everything's up in Bali. Much of everything's inside. So we're going to have a rendition of one very, very beautiful tune from The Greatest Showman. And it's called Never Again. Never Again. Yeah. Never enough. Never enough. Yeah. One of the times I performed it then, back in the day, I think it was called Never. But this is one of the beautiful tunes from The Greatest Showman. And we're going to have one of our own here, Rachel from our music team, present this for us. A round of applause for Rachel, please. Never enough. Never enough.
Sound, nice. Can you just turn to the person sitting next to you and just smile? It's a beautiful time, just smile. Yeah. I'm trying to hold my breath. Let it stay this way. Can't let this moment end. You set off a dream in me, getting louder now. Can hear it echoing. Take my hand. Can I share this with me? 'Cause darling, without you, all the shine of 1,000 spotlights, all the stars we steal from the night sky will never be enough, never be enough. Stars of gold is still too little. These hands could hold the world, but it'll never be enough, never be enough for me. Never, 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 never for me, for me. Never enough, never enough, never enough for me, for me, for me. All the shine of 1,000 spotlights, all the stars we steal from the night sky will never be enough, never be enough. Stars of gold is still too little. These hands could hold the world, but it'll never be enough, never be enough for me. Never Thank you.
Sit down.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Dami wanted me to prepare you, so he said I should tell you people that he's eating, so he can't be on stage because he's eating all the delicacies. But yes, so we've come to that part where we'll take questions. I'm not answering. Pastor Femi is answering the questions. I'm just here to ask those questions that came in online and via WhatsApp. So I don't know, for those in the hall, there should be a roving mic. So we'll alternate. I think I'll start with the first question we got earlier on during the talk. And then, yeah.
I think we should also, it doesn't have to be a question in particular on the talk. If there's any question about Christianity or lack of it.
Yeah, so any question, any question you have at all, any question, ask Pastor Femi. Yeah.
Don't ask me about politics, though. APC, and it's any question, but it's not like any question.
Okay, yeah. Any question on Christianity, challenging Christianity, on the talk, confusion with Christianity. Yeah. So we have a question here from Diamond. She's saying, do you think there will be a reason for God if there was world peace?
Well, first of all, I should say that I told you that the dry bones will live again. Arsenal were 3-0 down today. 3-0 down. What do you think happened? You're not serious. I said the dry bones will live. They came back 3-3. Isn't that what celebrated? Please, round of applause for. Yeah.
They couldn't win.
If you clap for Arsenal, somebody will clap for you. All right, that's not working. Okay, it's not working. But that was an important. I mean, I don't know why we make things hard for ourselves. Why go down 3-0 in the first place? Will there be a need for God if we get world peace? Maybe I should turn it around and say, can we get world peace without God? It's the question. The presumption is, what if we can get world peace without needing God? But first of all, I would say that the human track record has not been great on that, if you've been reading human history. There is no period in human history that we know of, once people started interacting with one another, there is no period where there has never been war. Never. The latter part of the 20th century, and I even say that, I'm not even sure. I mean, the 20th century, before the 21st century, was the period with which we had ascended to the greatest amount of knowledge. We knew each other more. We could travel more. Scientific enlightenment had reached, not its peak, but it was the peak that, had come up until that time. And the 20th century was the bloodiest century in human history. 2 world wars, We had revolutions and counter-revolutions. You had the Bolshevik Revolution in the USSR that gave rise to the Soviet Union. You had the Red Revolution in China that gave rise to the communist state. Then you had the leaders, Stalin and Mao, that killed tens of millions of their own people. We had our own civil war in Nigeria. You have wars that still go on in the Congo. You have what happened in Rwanda, where in less than how many days that a seventh of a population went in how many days? It was in 100 days, less than 100 days, like massacring. All in a time of, if you say, peak human knowledge. So it seems more, I would say, unreasonable to ask, can we have world peace? Would we need God if we didn't have world peace? If we're trying to be as rational as possible. The record of human history shows that the longer we go, the more, the less peace we have. Now, I should say this. Many people, criticize the United Nations. And I think the United Nations is worth the criticism it gets sometimes. But actually, the United Nations has actually done a whole lot of good. That is, I shudder to think what would happen if we didn't have the United Nations. Really. So there are measures of peace that we get. There is a united world order. We do have global multilateral organizations like under the UN, you now have the WHO that helps you with health. You have World Trade Organization, #NOI, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, right? We have all of these things, and these multilateral organizations have helped to keep a semblance of peace. But you wouldn't have world peace, I would say, because these things help you at a symptomatic level. They don't help us at the deepest level. Have you ever tried to get out of malaria by using Panadol? And I mean not sometimes the chalk Panadol that we have here. I'm talking about the expensive Panadol. If you have malaria and you take really good Panadol, do you know what will happen to you? You know what will happen to you? Your fever will go down. Your headache will go down. And then it will come back again. And you take it again, it will go down and come back. Now, the measure of relief that you got when you took the Panadol, was that false? Was it false? But would that ultimately solve your problem? Why? Because the deeper problem has to do with the malaria parasite that still has to be dealt with. Why I think we wouldn't have world peace, even though we can have pockets of peace. The pockets of peace and the different things that we do are like using Panadol to solve a malaria problem. But ultimately, the deepest problem we have is the problem of the human heart. This is what Christianity will say. The problem of the human heart is the sin that we have in the human heart. It's the disease, the sin disease that we have. And only ultimately God, through Jesus Christ, can solve that problem. And that's why one of the things Christianity offers, very explicitly. In fact, Jesus, our Savior, is called the Prince of Peace. And he says, in that world that I spoke about, that recreated world that I spoke about, he said, people will beat their swords into plowshares, and they will beat their spears into pruning hooks. That is, they will take their war weapons and turn it into gardening weapons. That is, where we used to fight wars, we will now be able to plant and bring out gardens. Why? He said, people will learn war no more. But at the heart of them is not because they had these wonderful negotiations, and this one said, I'll give you this land, I'll give you that land. No, it's because we restored in full perfection our relationship with God. And it's out of that relationship being perfectly restored that our relationship with one another is fully restored. It is only then that we can truly have lasting peace. But we should still work for everything that we can to be able to maintain peace here as much as possible.
Thank you. Someone has a question.
You have to. Is it mine?
Yeah, someone has a question here.
Okay. Sorry, you have to hold the mic for you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I have two questions.
Okay.
One is, what does deriving satisfaction from God actually look or feel like?
What does?
Deriving satisfaction from God.
What does
actually,
deriving satisfaction from
actually
God?
look or feel like?
Okay.
So we talk about it in theory, but what does it look like practically? And the second question is, this is not from me, this is a question that I get and I think about a lot. Doesn't the the chaos of the world, isn't it an indictment on the design of God? If this is coming from someone who is an atheist or an agnostic, if this is the best he could do, isn't that an indictment on him?
Yeah, good one. So the first one, what does it? What does what does deriving satisfaction from God look like? I should describe it. Are you married? Sorry, what's your name?
Yes, I am. David.
Your name is David.
Yes.
You are married. Sorry, can you?
Yes,
So
I
your
am.
name is David. You are married.
Yes,
Do you love your wife?
I do.
Sure.
Yes.
Really sure. Is she here?
No, she's not.
She's not here. Does she? Do you have children?
We have a son.
You have. Oh, she's
Yes.
looking after your child.
Yes.
Is she watching?
I hope so.
David's wife. David loves you. He's saying that. All right, describe it.
I would go to any length for her.
Okay.
I would do everything within my ability or within my power to make sure that she is satisfied or happy or at least okay. And then I know that she is not lacking because of something that I did not do.
That is a good attempt, but what you described are proofs that you love her. You've not described the love you have for her. You've not described what the love looks like itself. So do you want to try again to describe what that love, so that I can know what that love feels like?
It is impossible to describe emotions without describing what the emotions lead to.
I agree, and I'll say it's the same thing with satisfaction. That is, thank you. That is, there are things that words fail us to really describe. That's why, honestly, there are things, the problem many times, I think, with people who even question a lot of stuff about Christianity is that we end up not even using, and I'm not saying this is you, I'm just talking, we end up not using the normal way we actually communicate in life to think about things. Not everything. When I said stuff like, satisfaction with food is that feeling that you get when you just say, ah. If somebody said, describe satisfaction from the food that you just got, that you loved, and you say, well, when it went down my throat, if you start using biology, when it went down my throat, it went into my, I don't even know whether it goes into my stomach, and then when it goes into my stomach, you sort of, and then you how do you physically describe it? You can't with words, but you just know that you know that you know. And so there's a sense in which, yes, I can read from the things that you do, that you love your wife, but I can't actually, touch it. Sometimes I like to think of myself as somebody that, a crooner, I can sing a little bit. My wife was here, she'll bear me witness. And sometimes I just like to sing to her. I just like to, compose things for her. And I say sometimes, babes, the way I love you, it's so much that the thing is hurting me, it's overwhelming me. Like, I don't know how to put it. I say, I love you so. I said, the only thing you can do that will make me angry with you is if you talk bad about yourself. I'll be very angry with you if you talk bad about yourself. I love you so much that I'll be angry with you if you talk bad about yourself. You understand that kind of thing? It doesn't get me anywhere. She just, what are you saying? But quite often words fail us. And when you get to the Bible trying to describe the thing that we are looking for, because we know what we are looking for, we just don't know how to describe it, it has to eventually go into metaphors. That's why Jesus a master teacher is using the occasion of something that is tangible to express what he's saying. That is, like, you know this feeling about thirst, right? You know the feeling about thirst. What do you use? You know you need water, but you keep coming again. How about if you had the water such that you will never thirst again? That's a description. And so that full satisfaction is God using the limitation of words, because the Bible is a written text, to be able to describe to us. But we also have experienced things in this life. I would say that sometimes, I've gone through tremendous suffering in a way that made me find God in a way that I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, I'm going through this, but I am content. I'm content. It's like there's a nearness of God. And so these become like foretastes of what is to come. And so that you can be going through a particular, maybe if you want to taste some foretaste of what it is in this world, because we won't have it until the world that is to come. That you're going through things in this world that don't fully, things aren't going totally well, and you're like, I'm content. There's a guy in the Bible called Paul. He said, I've learned the secret of contentment. I'm okay whether I am in abundance or I'm in little. I'm fine. And that's sort of a picture of what we are going towards. God gives us foretastes of it now. Jesus, I didn't really say this in the text. Jesus says later, after the story with the woman, 2 chapters after that, he said, if anyone is thirsty, let them come and drink out of me. For if you drink out of me, the people who drink out of me, out of their own bellies will flow rivers of living water. And the interpretation was that he will give his Holy Spirit, who is like him, when Jesus returned. And so we don't have Jesus here now, but as Christians, we have what you call the Holy Spirit. And inexplicably, sometimes the Holy Spirit pours out the love of God in you. And that settles it. For those of us who have kids, one of the things, wonderful thing about having kids is you've had a terrible day. And that child, you just come and just see that child smile. Or you just see that child just ask you a silly question. And everything about your day just sort of goes, just be like, it's all right. Nothing has been solved. But you'll be like, it's all right. And that's what the Holy Spirit does. It's a tangible witness. God is really there, and it's like he pours the love of God in our hearts. And so these are foretastes. But if I could describe the full thing, it's because I've already experienced it, and I haven't. We're all trying to get there. So I hope that helps with that. The other question is, isn't it some kind of deficiency in God that we have the world as it is now? Right? The world he created, the world that has death, that has sickness, that has war, that has poverty, that has the imperfections of the world. Isn't that a reflection on God's own inability? I would say, well, for those who question like that, again, part of the problem is how we even put our questions across. Many times we don't question people on their terms. It's like going to the US, and it's sort of the analogy that I used. And, you're asking people, and they say, oh, we're going to watch a football game. And you'll be like, what were the scores? Who is the goalkeeper? Who is the star goalkeeper? Who is the defender? And who is the striker? And be like, what are you talking about? We're like, no, you're going for a football game, And we're like, no, we don't have goalkeepers, we don't have strikers, we don't have defenders, we have tight ends, we have cornerbacks, we have quarterbacks. In other words, if you really want to understand that person, the US game, you have to ask the questions on those terms. And so a lot of people come into the Christian faith and they don't ask the questions of the Bible on the biblical terms. They don't understand the Christian narrative first before they ask the question. Because if you did understand that, you would say the biblical narrative shows that God did not create a world with suffering. God did not create a world with all the problems that we had. That isn't how it started. God created a world and he was singing. Have you ever cooked food before? You'd be like, who has cooked food that you're singing? You know, when you're cooking food that is really good, you start singing. When you're tired and you know this food is not going to be, that's when you're just packing. Somebody calls you, who's calling now? And just mixing the thing. And just eat the rice. It's rice and stew. When you're taking rice, you're making ayamashi. And ayamashi, if you know what that is, it's made with love. You're frying plantain. You're boiling the egg. You're just singing because you know what's going to happen right after. When God was creating the world, because it was so good, every time he looked at it, he'd just be like, man, this is good. The first day he created, this is good. Second day is good. Third day is good. On the final day when he created human beings, he said, this is very good. That's the world God created. But also, what the Bible tells us is God is fundamentally love. Why the Christian God is one, but it's three persons. And it says the thing that links the three persons together, because the three persons have always eternally existed. But the reason why they are fully united is that they are united in love. So whatever God does, he does out of love. So when God created, he created out of love. But for you to love, you need freedom to love. The Father loves the Son because the Son is worth it. He's totally lovely. The Son loves the Father because he's totally lovely. I'm going somewhere. Right? The biggest problem you have with dictators is that dictators want the love of their followers, but they have to coerce their followers to do so. So when the dictator says, do you love me? Or let's say an abusive spouse, do you love me? And you have a gun, what will you say? If someone puts a gun before you and says, do you love me? What will you say? No, I don't. You're like, yeah, I love you. Is it true? Even at the point of death, if someone forces you to love them, you don't love them. And so this God that created out of love is going to want those he has created in his image to love him back. So he has to give them freedom. And with that freedom, those he created they eventually chose to live life outside of him, despite his loving warning that if you do this, this is what is going to happen. But he gave them that freedom. And so many of us too. That's why you are not forced to follow God and to love God. Because if you have to do that, it should happen only when you truly love him. Just like you shouldn't be forced into a marriage. It is the freedom that God gave to human beings that eventually led to the mess that we have. So what's the alternative? Should God create a world where he creates robots? Is that what we want? Even right now, we wouldn't want that. And so we can't have it both ways. And then the final thing I would say, he didn't start it that way. He had to give us freedom to love. But then the final thing is when we say there's a deficiency, again, read the narrative. How does the story end? The story ends wonderfully. And how is it that it reaches that point where you will see that there will be no more evil, no more war, no more pain? How does it happen? Is it because we ultimately solve the problem? No. The God who had love came down on his own to actually suffer the pain of the things that we were the ones that actually started. He suffered the consequences of that so that he can make the story end well. So I would say to the person that says there's a deficiency in God, I would say, please get familiar with the narrative first. And after you finish with that, then show me a secular narrative, a Buddhist narrative, a Hindu narrative about the world that you think actually makes more sense about the world that we have. And so that would be my answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Okay. So we have a question from YouTube. Stephen asked, I think you've kind of answered this, but yeah, if this is the question, if God really loves us, why does he allow us suffer for long? I guess you can relate since you're an Arsenal fan. He said, many love and trust in God, and yet they die suffering.
Oh, that was harsh. I've only ever been good to her. I mean, but I actually say that, following Arsenal has made me question the existence of God. I have. It's like, but whoever has that question, is it Stephen?
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, I joke about it, and yet it's not only, this is often the biggest question about the existence of God. It's the suffering. And, I can sit down here now and then answer the question, and sometimes even answering the question itself doesn't help, because when somebody is in deep suffering, all of a sudden we're trying to go, theoretical about it. It just doesn't get it to it. I will tell you this, though, as somebody who, I actually, for the last, so a lot of people in church know this, for the last 7-8 years, I've never, I don't know there's a day that I've ever felt, in the last 8 years, that I've felt probably 85 to 90%. The highest I've ever felt physically well is 85 to 90%. And that's the highest I've ever felt in the last 7 to 8 years. So, I go through some physical ailments. I'm constantly on painkillers, struggle with sleep, and all of these things. So I think I know a little bit about some kind of personal suffering. But again, there are people that are worse off. At least I'm sitting down here. I have a job. I'm doing these things. Some people don't have jobs. They're in the hospitals. And they just keep going for years and years. Some people, and if it looked like I was taking shade on you in the talk, my apologies, where I said that some people blame their parents and all that. The truth is, some of us maybe did not have a good start in life. Parents were not together. You grew up poor. You would have wished you were better educated, and that isn't the life that you have. So this isn't a question that just comes from, it's not as theoretical as we have to get into, it's not a theoretical question. But here's what I would say. You can't ultimately judge love just simply through the absence of pain. You just can't. I have 2 boys. One of the things, they like to talk about, the older one now, he's sort of getting over it. But before, they used to talk about their superpowers. They have superpowers. Superpowers that enable them to do many things. I often like to use the superpowers when they don't want to finish their food. And so, activate your super eating. They say there's no such power, super eating. Okay, activate super strength. There's no such thing that, activate super obedience. Just eat, my friend. You have superpowers, do something. But they don't like pain. Children of nowadays, they don't like pain. They don't flog them in their school. We used to do what you call chesting. That's how you proved you're a guy. You had young, especially in mixed schools, and you put mixed schools where children we're all undergoing puberty. You don't have car, you are too young. You don't have money, you are too young. You don't have house, you are too young. You can't toast a girl at that age with that. So what do? You can chest. Chest cane. Just put it out there, the big thing, pa, 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 and then you now finish. You now look, you now go back to your chair. Yeah. My children know nothing about that. They've been coddled too much. And so one of the things they hate the most is called immunization. Immunization. They can't stand it. My younger one, he will see the doctor, he'll say, when the doctor is just standing up, he say, what are you doing? I say, I'm standing up. Well, okay. Where are you going? Are you going to get a needle? Why did you open it? Why? He will question everything. Eventually, we have to hold him very tight to get it. And every time, they will look at you this way and say, I remember one I took, this one, my younger one, he fell down and he gashed the under of his chin. And so he needed stitches. Now, you can imagine if he needs stitches, for them to be able to do the stitches with pain, that place needs to be anesthetized. And so what do they have to do? They had to put a needle and put the stuff in different places. And I had to hold him down. And he's looking at me like this sort of, Daddy, don't you care? And the point is, I was holding him down that way to receive that pain. precisely because I can. You see, the pain that he was going to go through at that point was to eventually relieve him of greater pain later. So we can't first and foremost judge the love of God simply by the absence of pain. My child will eventually understand that the love and pain can dwell side by side together. That's the first thing. The Bible shows us that though God was not the one that set the chain reaction of pain and suffering in this world, nonetheless, he's sovereign over it and he can use it for deeper meaning. I'm not saying that I always understand the particular pain you're going through and this is the meaning for it, but don't necessarily say there is no meaning to life and there is no God because there is pain and suffering. Second thing, God does love us and he uses pain to tell us something. That the cause of pain, if we don't repent of the cause of pain, that is a precursor for a greater pain that is eternal. Some people came to Jesus and asked him about two things. And he had the same response. The first one was a natural disaster, and the second one was a human disaster. The first one, a tower fell down and killed people. The second one, a leader went and he just murdered people and just desecrated them in a terrible way. And they were asking Jesus, the people that suffer in this way, were they, and for those who are, if you want to read it, it's in Luke chapter 13. The people that suffered this way, were they worse sinners than others that didn't? And Jesus did not go down that road. He said that ultimately, they weren't, but that if you don't repent, you will likewise perish. I'm like, why will he talk about us? Why will God have a place of eternal suffering if he is loving? Well, the first thing is, or I'll turn the question, if God isn't loving, if God is loving, why shouldn't he have a place of eternal suffering? You see, when I was holding my child down and they were giving him that pain, that anesthesia, and they were trying to, sew him up. You know what they were doing? They were trying to create a situation where, and they put antibiotics, they were trying to create a situation where if there were any germs that were there that would eventually hurt him, they wanted to destroy the germs. In other words, love actually makes us destroy things sometimes. It makes us destroy the things that are trying to destroy what we love. And so my loving act there was my loving act was producing wrath to destroy what could destroy my child. God loves this world. He loves the people that are in it. But there is something in this world that is in us human beings that if we're not careful, it has already started destroying the world. That's what the narrative says. And it will ultimately destroy the world. And so God's loving reaction to that is a place for eternal punishment to put all of those things away so that the new world he creates will not have that. That's the second. The third thing to show you he's loving, even with all of that, is that he warns us about it. If you had a doctor that said you went and complained about symptoms and the doctor says, man, if I tell you that you have this disease, it will hurt this person's feelings. So he eventually says, you know what? Just go and drink some water at home. Like British doctors often say, when you have the flu, just go back and drink water. I hated that thing. Just go and drink water at home. Would you say that's a good doctor? Because he wasn't trying to hurt your feelings? I'm sure we'll say no. But Jesus actually warns us about it. Again, to show that he's loving. But here's the final one. God actually comes as a human being. He experiences the same sufferings that we go through, the same temptations, trials that we go through. And he does something about it. Not like other religions where he's detached from it. He actually goes through the pain and through the suffering. He actually goes through the worst thing we go through, which is death. It was in death that he conquered death. And so, he is going to do something about every suffering that we experience. Whoever you are, most of us would live tops 100 years old. 100 years old. What is a life of occasional pain, suffering, joy, love, pain, suffering? What is 100 years of that compared to 1 billion years of eternal bliss? It's like a drop in the ocean. And that's what God has purchased for us. So I hope those 4 things help you see that even though God is loving, there can be a reason for suffering long in this world. All right. Any question here?
Yeah, any question? Yes.
All right. Your name is Gabriel, right? All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've learned a lot, and I'm still going to learn from you and from everyone. So my question is from John 16:33. It says, "These things I've spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Now, I want practical examples of how one can be satisfied in Christ. Practical examples of how one can be satisfied in Christ, especially when one is in deep trouble, in deep shit. Why I'm saying that is because I've listened to so many messages from pastors, ministers that said when they're in trouble, they worship God, they praise God, they dance, they sing, even when they don't feel like it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to me because I just feel the problem is still there. You're still dancing, you know. So I need practical examples of how one can be satisfied in Christ. And one more question about creating a balance between life troubles and living for God.
Creating a balance between
life troubles and living for God, like still satisfying God.
Okay, and living for God.
Yes.
Okay, and going through life's troubles.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so let's take the first one. How do you dance while you are going through? Yeah. So it is really those pastors' words: dancing while suffering, and Fela's own words: suffering and smiling. 49 sitting, 99 standing. How do you smile during that? I think I've heard some of those messages that you talk about, and it's this that, well, some of what I've heard is you're going through some challenges, and you seem not to have a breakthrough. So you pray, and you pray. You fast, you do everything. It doesn't work. It's not that God hasn't heard, but you've not actually had the final key. So what's the final key? You praise. You praise as though you've already received what you have. And that praise in itself, that's the number one way you can get God, and all of a sudden you start to receive your breakthrough. And your issue is, it just doesn't seem to make sense to, when it doesn't make sense to me too. I have my grandfather died. Well, one of my grandfathers died. I have to be careful here because some people may be watching. I don't want to out anyone. My grandfathers died about 22 years ago. I'll never forget what happened. We were walking towards the cemetery. As we were walking towards the cemetery, I was crying. There was, it was just bad, and there was an aunt of mine. Man, like, if you saw the way she was crying, you'd be like, how she loved this man. It's not like the others weren't, but it's like, no, daddy, no. So when it was now time to lower the casket, she was like, she's going in. They were pulling her, don't go, leave me alone, leave me, I'm going with daddy. Like, no, you can't go, you can't. And they pulled her. It was very traumatic. So when we're now going back, you now start going back. The music changes. Now all of a sudden, talking drums are beating very fast. Okay? The way my auntie was dancing, like the person that wanted to follow daddy into the kind of dance, this sort of dance where it's like, move for me, move, going forward, going back. I'm like, but I thought if they allowed you to enter, auntie, what happened? It did not make sense. The Bible never calls us to react in a way that is contrary to what is really before us. If you read the Bible, you don't hear, there's this books of the Bible called the Psalms. And it's filled with a lot of what you call, I think a third of them is filled with what you call lament. About a difficult situation. In fact, one of the laments was about how the children of Israel were taken to a foreign land, Babylon. They weren't taken it wasn't through a PR kind of application, They were conquered, their place was destroyed, and then they were deported. And then the people of that city in Babylon were making fun of them. They told them can you not sing us one of the songs of Zion? Zion was like their capital. Sing one of those songs. It's like, how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Like, we look at the condition we're in. How are we going to sing that kind of song there? Now, I think with the best intentions, what some of those people are trying to say is, you can make God happy. Don't always look at a situation. Don't always think about yourself. Make God happy. And when God is happy, sort of that he then is happier towards you. But I've often thought about that it just seems a little bit like manipulation. Like, doesn't God know that? He knows that I'm not happy. So me trying to do this thing is like I'm trying to program God. So let's just be real. So here's what I think. Paul says something in the Bible in 2 Corinthians ending of chapter 4. He says, this is the reason why, though we go through so many different things, we don't lose heart. He says, though our outward man is wasting away through the suffering we get, he understands that suffering isn't meaningless. So that God is actually doing something on the inside. Our inner man is being renewed day by day. But at the same time, though that is going on here, he says that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man what the Lord has prepared for those who love him. So that as I'm being renewed day by day, the temporary afflictions that I am going through now will not be compared to the weight of glory that I receive in that time when what I receive that eye has not seen and ears have not heard. So he's saying that there is a purpose to this suffering that is ultimately taking me to a place of glory. And it is on that, I look at that, not just at my personal circumstances. He's saying, I'm not going to look at the short term, I will look at the long term. So he then says, we walk by faith and not by sight. That is, what I can see now is the short-term thing. But what I can see, what faith gives me eyes to see the truth about God, that it's not just this life that matters, but what this is accomplishing for me in a greater life. On account of that, I don't lose heart. And on account of that, I can actually praise God in my suffering. You see, in that way, it is possible for you to worship God, not because your circumstances have changed, but to worship God because you know what your ultimate circumstance is. When you do that, you don't lose faith in the character and the person of God. You say, God, I may be going through all of this now, but because of what I know this suffering can achieve in me, because I know what you will ultimately accomplish, I know you care for me. And so I will not allow my circumstances to always define me. There's a greater reality than my circumstances, it's you. I will praise you. And while I'm praising you, oh Lord, do you mind doing something about this too? You see, in that regard, you can, with the eyes of faith, not complaining, you can lament your situation from a place of faith. Complaining is to talk about a situation in a faithless way. Lament is to talk about your situation in a faithful way. Because you know God's character doesn't change. You know what God is going to accomplish. You know that God loves you and cares for you. And so you can ask. You can ask like the importunate woman. Keep asking, keep asking, keep asking. And it is in that regard that you can show your satisfaction. When Paul says, I have learned the secret of contentment, and he says that whether I am in abundance or I'm in little. So it doesn't mean, satisfaction doesn't mean you are always happy. Satisfaction means you're always content because you have this knowledge of the truth about what God is doing in you and what God will ultimately do to you. And as I said, it doesn't also mean you can't ask. It just means that now you ask from the place of faith about who God is. And I think that also ties to your second question, which is how do you balance living for God whilst you're going through the difficulties of life? That's what we are called to do. First of all, we always have to live for God. It's not, I live for God in church, I should be happy serving in church, but then when I go out, what's up? When you are going through your struggles, you should live for God. Paul says that because Christ died for us and he rose again, lives for us, whether we die or we live, it has to be unto Christ. Our life is not our own. He purchased our lives for us. So in your good times, you should be living for God. In your difficult times, you should be living for God. Your whole life, if you are truly a Christian, is living for God. But the point is, how do I maintain the joy? How do I maintain the joy for God? And this is why I say you can't run away from the fact that the challenge with a lot of Christians many times is, you know what, I'll go to church or I'll be part of my Christian community when things are going well for me. Yeah, you should be when things are going well for you, but precisely it should be when things aren't going well for you. I'll read my Bible when things are going well for me, when I feel like I'm getting some kind of revelation and rhema. I'll pray when I feel like. If you do that, the things that enable you to thrive spiritually, even through the fires and the difficulty, you won't be able to be there. The Bible says that you will not have developed the spiritual muscle. If you turn back in the day of adversity, it's because your strength is small. There's a time you always have to be building your spiritual muscle because the day of adversity doesn't always come. But when it comes, will you be found to be strong? So my encouragement would just be, yeah, life sucks sometimes, doesn't it? But how we live for God in good times and bad times depends on how we create and develop just our ongoing relationship with God. I know this as somebody who has struggled with trying to do exercises regularly, right? Is that the most difficult thing about doing exercise regularly is doing it regularly. And the most rewarding thing about doing it regularly is what? Doing it regularly. And sometimes you don't feel like, sometimes you do feel like. The important thing is just do it anyway. And so keeping that your spiritual disciplines with the Lord, personal devotion, personal reading, personal prayer, communal meeting, worship gatherings, all of those things, keep that ongoing. Even when it's difficult, God sees that and God honors that. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that final question?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, after this, I think this.
Final question. Okay, so we have a question from WhatsApp. It's a bit of a deviation from the talk. First of all, the person says it was a great sermon, Pastor. My question is, how did the report of your Christian hero impact you? And how did you deal with it? And I think that's in reference to Ravi.
Yeah, so the name of the person is someone called Ravi Zacharias. I write a little bit about it. I wrote an article about it. You can, I can't remember what the article is about, but if you go to a website called africa.thegospelcoalition.com, you probably will be able to see it there and search for my name or Ravi Zacharias. So I think it's there. So I sort of, in trying to reflect how it affected me, I was trying to also help, trying to humbly put advice there for people who are devastated. Because when I say a personal hero of mine, he was a hero to millions of people. Like a lot of people, I'll tell you what, some of the things I even say, some of the arguments, when I don't even know that I am actually quoting him, a lot of some of the things I've said are actually from him. And so it was particularly devastating. It convinced me about something more than anything that I've known before. And I think all Christians should know this. God has many messengers, but God ultimately had one messenger. And all those messengers are either pointing back towards that messenger or they are pointing forward towards that messenger. God had many prophets in the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. God has had many prophets after in what we call New Testament till today. But all those messengers were pointing to the messenger. And I was pointing to that messenger in the talk. It is an important thing to have heroes. I would say it's an important thing to even look to people. The Bible talks about follow me as I follow Christ. Obey and imitate your leaders, those who spoke the word of the Lord to you. So there is something about having people to inspire you. But there's a pedestal that you must never put anyone, no matter how much they inspire you, on. Why? Because they can never carry that weight. And oftentimes when we find out our heroes' foibles and sometimes our heroes' hypocrisy, it further reminds us that ultimately none of those heroes, if they died for us, would have saved us. That is why God himself, right, the second person of that Trinity, himself became a human, and he is the one that we worship. He is the one that we look towards. Men's words about him is what inspires us. And so those men should be honored, and those women should be honored. But ultimately, it is the word about him that eventually is the one. And so it just further convinced me about my conviction in the person of Jesus Christ. That's one. Two is that it convinced me about my own foibles too. That if somebody died at 74, right, I'm still years away from where he was. If he read the Bible, if he saw all of these things, and he could still do that, I have to be very, as a Christian leader, I have to be very careful, and let me not just use the word careful, humble. And you know what they say about humility now? Once you start saying I'm a humble person, you just show that. You have lost it, right? You know. You say, do you give a talk? How I finally became humble. You're like, okay, I think you may need to work on that. But that I often say that about humility, that the first requirement of humility is self-awareness. Someone that is not aware about themselves, and particularly I mean your weaknesses, cannot really be said to be humble. Because when you say, oh, I should worship God, oh, please don't hold me high on a pedestal. You know, sometimes we say, oh, it's not for me, it's all the glory of God. And by us doing that, our perceived humility is what we are trying to use for you to, so they say, that guy is so humble. Like, I'm your humble servant. It's actually a way to show our lack of humility. So when you say it's really to the glory of God, why are you saying that? If you cannot point to the fact of, because in my own heart, if you know the things that I think about, you know that you shouldn't be glorifying me, I'm just a vessel. If you know the kind of battles, I would say, if you know the battles I face with self-approval, approval of people, if you know the battles I face sometimes with being conceited, you will know that whatever accolades you have to give to me should be tempered. The question is this about yourself, and I was asking, do I know that? Does that always walk with me? Because the root of what eventually, but you should walk humbly. So when you are aware of yourself, the next thing is you are aware of God. In those terrible things that you say, people may not see it. Does God see it? Do you really, really, really believe there is a God? Like the way I can see some of you seated here. I know you are here. You are not an illusion. Do you really, 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 really believe that God actually can see? In many ways, the Christian faith, the journey of the Christian faith is the journey of our increased awareness of the presence of God. Because we don't fully believe it. We are increasing our belief in it, but we don't. Or else we will never sin at least, if God was inside here, you won't commit any sin. And so I became more aware of my own fragility as well. And I also became more aware about the need for real accountability as leaders. It's a buzzword. When a word becomes a buzzword, where everybody starts talking about it, eventually, the more you talk about it, the more it actually loses its meaning. And so you can put a lot of accountability structures around you without actually being accountable. And so truly, confessing sin to people that you're holding, that are being held accountable, you are held accountable towards. Here in our church, we try to practice plural leadership. So even though I'm lead pastor, it's not like I have the ultimate say in everything. There's a group of us. But also just being more open about who you truly are and really leveraging, allowing that power not to be centralized. But the ultimate accountability still comes in your personal relationship with God. When you have violated, when you have been able to find ways out of all those accountability structures, you are left with you and God. Should I do this or not? And that is something I want to continue to grow in. So that's what I would say to that. He's not the first to fall. He won't be the last. I hope I don't. I pray to God I don't. But I also say, if you are that kind of person, please don't quickly say, oh, so if these Christian leaders are falling, why should I continue in Christianity? And I'll end with this. It's true he fell, and it's true it was a huge scandal. But you know why it's a scandal? Let me put it another way. What is the safest form of transportation? Most of you know this answer. What's the safest form of transportation? Air travel. Isn't it? What is the form of transportation most people are scared of? Does that make any sense? Why? Let me tell you why. It's because of what happens when we have a plane crash. When a plane crash happens, not only is it devastating, it is actually, because it is so rare, it is so catastrophic. And it is that memory that actually makes it a headline. We have daily crashes of cars all the time. It is because car crashes happen all the time that is not a headline. It is because of the kind of high standard that we hold to Christian leaders, and because Christian leaders are not falling in that way all the time, that when a Christian leader of that caliber falls, that it becomes a scandal. Are you understanding me? Because if Christian leaders were falling in the way, just like you're having car crashes, I'm telling you, at that point, Christianity would have been a farce. It's like, it's not even holding any kind of power to those who it's meant to lead. No. So I'm saying, if you are that kind of person that wants to say, well, this person I know fell, and that person I know fell, and that person I know fell. For every one person you can tell me that you know is not doing well, I probably could give you 100 names of people that we don't really know. There are no-name pastors, right, that are serving. There are no-name Christian leaders that are serving well. The reason it becomes a scandal is because of the rarity of it, and the rarity of it is what makes it look like a catastrophe, which it is. And we should learn lessons from it. But I don't think you have to give up on Christianity because it is happening. We've seen that happen. The Lord bless you all. Thank you. And I'll hand over to Hira and to close us. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pastor Femi. That was good. So we've come to the end. Dami, I believe, has finished eating, so he can join me now. But thank you all for coming, and thank you for listening, asking your questions. Please, we would like you to continue to engage with us beyond today. We're present on every social media. Not every, sorry, because I don't think we're on TikTok yet. I don't know if we're on Facebook, but we're on Instagram. Oh, okay. I'm not on Facebook. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, City Church Lagos, YouTube. Those joining us online already, you're there. So we're on YouTube. Please subscribe, and the other ways you would follow on all the other social media platforms. We also have a podcast where you can listen to today's talk again. You can listen to the previous talks that we've had, as well as our other sermons. We have two podcasts. One is The Gospel in Lagos. It's on SoundCloud and the Apple podcast. We also have Theology in Lagos, where we have our theological teachings. So you can use it to invite people to come join us and benefit from what we are benefiting from.
Yeah, you did mention that the Q&As will also be available to share to broadcast. So you can make yourself, you can use that and share to other people who are not available. So we're glad. Thank you very much for coming. And you can also join us on Sundays and on Sundays. So we meet here. This is where we have our Sunday meetings, 2 services, 7:45 and 9:45 a.m. And we're meeting next Sunday. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're glad to have you around. See you again, maybe on Sunday, or see you next year, LQC, barring any pandemic. I know. Yeah, good night, everyone.